Should we start with talking more about somnambulism?
That's a good link. Let's do it. We're gonna talk about probably the most famous movie from 1920.
The Big Dazzy, as it were.
Good lord, um, and, and including one that fans of Portlandia will be familiar with,
There you go.
uh, which is The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Maybe one of the most famous just silent movies.
Yeah,
Period.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
big
really
one.
know how to gauge that, but like if you were to rank silent movies in terms of famousness, probably the top three would be Caligari, Metropolis, and Trip to the Moon.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, this was directed by Robert Vina, I think is how you say his name. And I mean, yeah, it makes sense that this movie is super famous and like influential because it is pretty good.
It's visually one of the most striking movies ever made,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
They take this kind of it almost feels like a descendant of Ernst Lubitsch's The Doll, with its kind of painterly or um I don't know, theatrical backgrounds,
Yeah.
that are not super literal, and just drives that all the way
Yeah.
to just say like, what is the like zaniest, strangest, most Gilliam-esque spaces that we can create
Yeah.
by painting backgrounds onto like behind our actors.
Yeah. I mean, this movie is like the definitive example of German expressionism in film.
Mm-hmm.
German expressionism being also like a movement in just fine art in general. Like it was a big painting thing kind of leading up to this. But yeah, whenever people talk about German expressionism, they talk about this movie because it is like maybe the most, I don't know, I haven't seen every German movie that like has expressionist sets, but this is the one that like really takes it really far, and it does a great job with it.
Yeah. You watch this movie and then you go like, I can see Tim Burton stole this shot. I can see that
Yep.
this is a Nightmare Before Christmas.
This is where Tim Burton got his entire deal from, huh?
It's even got like, so the main one of the main characters, the somnambulist, he just looks like he should be in The Cure.
Yeah,
or the Smiths.
He's a goth boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a skinny goth boy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I did think of The Doll, how theatrical that movie is, and like Student of Prague had a little bit of kind of expressionist stuff going on in it, but neither of those go quite as hard as this does.
As far as I know, no other movie goes as hard as this movie.
Yeah, I mean certainly not until like you get into like, green screen digital backlot stuff where it's like people could kind of throw anything out onto the screen that they wanted to. But in terms of like building weird sets that look like you're actively hallucinating them while you're watching it.
Yeah. Kind of Van Gogh-esque. A lot of them also like look 2D. They look like they should be like a painting that is behind the characters, but then they're actually like three-dimensional spaces that that are just shaped really weird, and the characters can walk through them, which really adds like a sense of place to the world.
And it isn't just like for the sake of being weird. Like this movie is about like losing touch with reality and like not really, and like unreliable narration and like flashbacks, and like the wacky sets really do have a very strong kind of narrative purpose in this, which I like.
Yeah, which it'd been a minute since I've seen this. I wonder if like we should start worrying about spoilers when we like now that we're
I don't know.
about some
This
of these
movie
more famous
is
movies.
over 100 years old. If you haven't seen it by now, get with it.
A lot of people haven't seen Caligari and they want to.
All right,
and
so
I will
go
say
watch
that, like,
Caligari right now and then come back and listen to the rest of the episode, because we're going to talk about the twist at the end.
Yeah, and consider this your warning for every episode which should be obvious by now, that we talk about all the plot
Yeah.
details in everything that
I
we
I
do.
guess this is maybe the first thing we've watched that is like has a twist ending, like a pretty clear like thing where it's like, ooh, big
Yeah,
twist.
yeah, and so the twist is, in a way, it is this kind of cliche, it was all in your head kind of thing, which is which, as you were saying, is emphasized and depicted in this really cool way by the backgrounds. You think the backgrounds are just an interesting stylistic touch, but they are depicting like the hallucinations, the delusions of somebody who is in an insane asylum.
Hmm. Although once we find out that he's been in an insane asylum this whole time, the sets don't change. We don't then move into like realistic looking sets.
I guess you could say that it's like coming from his perspective in a way.
Yeah. And there's even like, so this movie was written by two guys.
It's written by Hans Janowitz and Karl Mayer.
So they wrote this movie as a like direct response to World War One and like Germany's experience in World War One. So the kind of core outside of the opening and closing sort of framing device scenes, this movie is about a sort of mad doctor, a mad psychiatrist who uses a sleepwalking man to commit murders. And sort of the big like metaphor of it is like an authority figure using the youth to like commit murders for their own ends. Basically, their perspective on World War One. And the sort of twist ending and the sort of narrative like framing device of like the main bulk of the movie being a flashback wasn't, or sort of maybe wasn't part of their original pitch for it. There's a lot of conflicting information about the making of this movie, and it was made a very long time ago, so it's like hard to kind of verify some things. But the idea that like, oh, the guy was crazy the whole time and Caligari is just a normal doctor kind of invalidates that like metaphor a bit.
Yeah.
So it's like that may or may not have been their idea. Like that might have been a thing that was added on to their initial script. Even though it's like one of the most kind of notable things about this movie is its like narrative structure, that it's like told as a flashback and like an unreliable flashback at that.
Yeah, it's I mean, it starts off with this framing narrative, which in almost this Gumpian sense, there are two guys sitting on a bench.
True. One is like, "Hey, see that girl? We're supposed to be married."
Yeah, like, yeah. There's your main someone who's like, okay, he looks like our main character. He's sitting on a bench next to the guy that kind of looks odd, but you don't really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a woman who walks by and looks just completely blank and distant. And then he goes, "You see that lady? That's my fiance. Let me tell you about how we met." And then it goes all the way inside of this thing. It's not presented in like a like as if there's narration over it. It just says it just has this very short opening sequence that you forget about pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the bulk of the movie, which is this flashback, quote unquote. And then when it comes back out again, right? And all of these reveals start happening toward the end of the movie that that bench is inside an insane asylum, and that all of these people are insane, is I in some ways it's like one of those classic like cheap plot twists. But if you go back to the original scene, like everybody clearly looks insane, like,
right? Yeah,
like at the beginning of it, and you just don't make anything of it, and then like, yeah, I think it justifies like some of the kind of cliche aspects of the twist, because it does, it does like kind of really sell the fact that these people are all deranged.
Also, who's to say that that twist was a cliche at this point, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, the kind of the bulk of the movie is our main character Francis and his friend Jack go to like a carnival where there's a sort of attraction being put up by Dr. Caligari, the world's most suspicious looking man. And they go in and he's talking about how he has this somnambulist named Cesare, somnambulist meaning sleepwalker. So he's like, this man has slept his entire life, but we're gonna wake him up. Also, he can predict the future. Totally unrelated to the fact that he's a sleepwalker. He can also predict the future.
That just happens when you sleep for too long.
Yeah. So then he's like, all right, who wants to know their fortune? And Francis' friend Jack is like, tell me my future. And Cesare says, you will die by dawn tomorrow. Which is typical goth behavior that you're just giving people like dark portents. And so Jack naturally is freaked out by this and is in fact murdered that night, which Francis finds very suspicious, rightfully, and vows to bring the killer to justice. And so the sort of main plot of the movie is this kind of like, not really murder mystery, because I think it's pretty obvious from the get-go who the murderer is and like what that whole situation is.
Is that the way Columbo does it? Like, you know who the murderer is the whole time?
I mean, that like fully is like the opening scene of Columbo is usually the murderer committing the murder. So like the audience is fully in on who done it the whole time.
I've never watched Columbo, but like I feel like there are a lot of Columbo memes right now. Everybody's really into Columbo lately.
It's a really good show. I've only seen a couple episodes of it, but it holds up. So then it's like Francis is going talking to cops and like trying to figure out who the murderer was. They capture a sort of copycat killer who was kind of using the other murders to like trying to do like a similar crime in order to get away with it. They go and investigate Dr. Caligari, the world's most suspicious man, and see that Cesare sleeps in a coffin. Again, very goth behavior. And they kind of stake out like the room where he's staying at. But then Cesare still breaks into Jane being his fiance from the beginning, breaks into her room and kidnaps her. And then they're like, wait, how could he have gotten out?
Yeah, like I've been watching him the whole time.
Right, and it turns out that there was a dummy of him sleeping in the coffin. So that's how he was able to be in two places at once.
Daring. It's a brilliant trick.
Yeah. And so they chase Caligari back to the asylum where he works and find out that he's the director of the asylum. The lunatic is running the asylum. Whoa. And they read his diary and find out that he assumed the alias of Dr. Caligari after this other 18th century Italian doctor of the same name who also used a somnambulist to commit murders. And there's a pretty cool scene, like a flashback within a flashback scene where we see Caligari is sort of like going insane and seeing the words, "You must become Caligari," like appearing everywhere he looks. Which was just a cool use of like text on screen that wasn't intertitles.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that would be this kind of like delusional voice narration, probably depicting voices in his head,
right?
But depicting it visually, and of course, like in the font was very Caligari styled.
Yeah. Even in the intertitles themselves, they have this very kind of like Gothic German font use. So they throw Caligari in the asylum, and the kind of flashback narrative ends, and we find out that Francis is actually an inmate, and like all the other characters in the story are other inmates, like Cesare, Jane, everybody. And Caligari's
so it's just
there,
like making up like fan fiction about all the people around him.
And like Caligari's there, and he looks like a normal person. and then Francis tries to attack him and gets thrown into a straitjacket in the same cell that we see Caligari get thrown in earlier. And so it's like, twist, he was the crazy one. But then there is the kind of thing of like, the sets don't get normal at the end. Like, there's still these sort of twisted, expressionistic sets. So it's like, it's not like we're fully coming out of the reality of like this nightmarish, reality that we're in. There was also, I watched like a sort of, I don't know, scholarly talk about this movie on YouTube by a film professor, Gilberto Perez, who points out that when Francis gets thrown in the cell at the end, there are some shapes on the wall that are like painted on the walls that when we see Caligari get thrown in the first time in the flashback, we see these shapes on the wall. And when Francis gets thrown in at the end, the shapes have been like scraped off. So it's like, like, when are these things taking place? Like, what's going on there? And like, maybe this is all reading way too much into it, but I do think that it's cool that this movie has that level of like ambiguity to it.
Yeah. It plays with so many so many ideas of like what is real, what isn't real, like what can you believe from what people say, that those kind of classic I don't know, classic mental health related theming ideas.
Yeah, I think the writers Meyer and Janowitz talked about how like they felt following World War I there was just this sense of like insanity, that like humanity had gone insane from their experience of like living through that. And that's kind of what they wanted to, that's like why they wanted to make this movie, is just to be like, this was crazy. Everyone's gone mad. Why is everyone murdering each other? Which I do think it gets that across, even with its sort of like twist ending, which they seemingly like weren't really supportive of. I think it does have this overall sense of just like reality being kind of unmoored and kind of unsteady.
The same director and set designer, and were the same writers involved? Carl Meyer was also involved. They made a movie, another movie called Genuine in later in 1920, which is kind of like a follow-up in a way to Caligari. It uses similar. I've looked at some clips from it. It's not like as wild as the sets are, but it does have like some more of that kind of expressionist strangeness to it. It's horror adjacent. One of the alternate titles is Genuine, A Tale of a Vampire. But
like vampire in the 1910s kind of sense.
Yeah. A vamp. So it's about a sexy lady, but I don't know too much about it, but it does seem like an interesting related piece to Caligari.
Yeah, I don't know, it's cool that this movie was part of like a greater arts movement, I think too, that like expressionist paintings were a thing, and so like this film uses a lot of like expressionist set design as like part of that. It's like part, I don't know, just the idea that it's not, German expressionism wasn't just a film style or film movement. It was like a big kind of arts movement in Germany. And this movie is definitely, we kind of touched on it before, but it's like you can definitely see the influence of it in a lot of things.
Yeah, Tim Burton looked at this movie and he was like, that please.
Yes. I'm gonna make this movie my whole identity. This is supposedly this is Nicolas Cage's favorite film, at least according to the fictionalized version of him in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. He talks a lot about this being his favorite movie, which I imagine is true. Like, it makes sense that Nicolas Cage would love this movie. This is one of those movies that gets cited as like the first of many things. Like, it's the first horror movie, or like the first psychological horror movie, and I'm like, that's all horseshit. Like, there's been movies that were intended to be scary before this, you know?
It's the first Caligari movie.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, it does seem like the first of a lot of things. It does seem very revolutionary in many ways. But yeah, the as usual, the way that people want to talk about this era of film is a little too perfect. It's a little too cute. It's a little too easy.
Yeah, too kind of definitive. Like, things evolved more than they just kind of started out of thin air. But I think this movie is definitely like one of the most influential movies from this time period. Like, you can really see how it just how people watch this and we're like, oh wow, there's a lot more that we can do with this medium that maybe we haven't been taking advantage of.
Yeah. And Conrad Veidt, who played Cesare, the somnambulist, and Robert Vina, they worked together on another movie, probably Robert Vina's other famous movie called The Hands of Orlok, from 1924, and Conrad Veidt starred in that. And I think the next movie we'll talk about is a movie about Jewish folklore that is directed by a non-Jewish person, a Gentile, who when the Nazis came to power, stayed in Germany and continued making movies, which including like propaganda movies, which
not a great look
stuff. Not a great look. Maybe rethink that one, Chief. But Robert Vina was Jewish and fled Germany. Conrad Veidt was not Jewish, but he was completely anti-Nazi, which is so refreshing to hear. Like, to hear a non-Jewish person from the 1920s and 30s be like strongly anti-fascist is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Conrad Veidt married a Jewish woman and left for England. But when he had to like register his race, like with the Nazis, when that happened, he put himself down as a Jew, even though he wasn't. So good going, Conrad Veidt. We stand.
There's definitely gonna be more movies with Conrad Veidt that we're gonna cover. So I'm intrigued to like read more about him and kind of figure out what his deal was. Because he's very good in this. He's very menacing, but he also has a lot of like soulfulness, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, Cesare,
you can see that he's tortured and sexy.
Right. Cesare is kind of feels like a kind of a classical like movie monster almost. Like, he's scary, but he's also very human and tortured and sympathetic. Which it feels you can see. I think, I don't know if Boris Karloff saw this movie before he played the Frankenstein monster, but I feel like there's a bit of kind of lineage that you can see between those two performances. For sure. I mean, a lot of like slow walking and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
carrying women around.
I think the main difference is that like Cesare is like, he just seems completely out of control of himself. He is he's being hypnotized, he's being put under, and he seems like somebody who is appropriately sad for having been asleep until through his mid-20s. And but he's just being somewhat of an automaton. I guess the last thing I would say about this movie is that if we were to make a remake these days, based solely on cheekbones, I would probably cast Timothy Chalamet as Cesare.
Yeah, I mean, good choice. Like, let's make it happen. Let's get Chalamet on board and remake this movie.
Tim, hit us up.
Hit us up in the comments, Tim.